right, listeners of Lit, I'm Daniel.
I'm Josh, and welcome to episode number 2. That's right, the continuation for our first episode, Doc Holliday.
Oh, man, so we left off was getting to the OK Corral.
Yeah, Doc had just won a bunch of money, and they were heading in the summer of 1880.
So if you haven't listened to the first one, I strongly suggest you go back and you listen to it now.
Back into it, guys.
And you know what? If you did listen to it twice.
3 times even.
That's it. We need all the monies.
All of it.
Jesus Christ, bro.
Oh, man, I needed that.
Yes.
Now, when Doc made it to Tombstone, not only did he find Wyatt, but Wyatt had also brought the rest of the Earp brothers in, including Morgan, who was from Montana, James Earp, who had traveled from Dodge City, and Virgil, who had been living in Prescott, where he had just been made a deputy U.S. Marshal. Now, Wyatt and his brothers were both silver mining, and James was dealing faro at a place called Vogan's Saloon. Virgil appointed Wyatt as the active city marshal, and then he also swore in Morgan. So when the Earps arrived in Tombstone, the outlaw Clanton gang had already been running over the territory, and immediately they were not liking the Earps being there, because the Earps had already humiliated them, had arrested them, had pistol whipped a couple of them.
There's some bad blood happening.
Absolutely. So the Clanton gang, who was led by Old Man Clanton and his sons, Ike, Finn, and Billy, along with the McLaury brothers, who were named Frank and Tom. There was a man named Curly Bill Brocious, John Ringo, and a few other followers. And they went to work letting everybody know what they thought of the Earps. Now, the Earps, they needed a little backup. So who did they call? None other than freaking Doc Holliday.
Yeah. You don't call an entire posse. You call one person.
Yeah. Now, it should be noted that during this time when they were all getting together, Kate was actually running a boarding house in a place called Globe, Arizona, which was about 175 miles away from Tombstone, but she would regularly visit Doc and stay with him. So, could you imagine 175 miles on train or stagecoach just to see your girlfriend or something like that?
That's commitment, though.
Man, that's not.
But he was a millionaire at this point, though.
I guess you would commit to getting your ass over there, too.
You know, something I had not thought about previously. The man was a millionaire at this point, but he's still getting tangled up in these crazy things and still going out and, in shootouts and stuff.
Absolutely.
I would have hung my hat up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then again, tuberculosis at this point is probably getting extremely bad with him.
Yeah.
I mean, his health's probably taking a toll by this point.
So in October of 1880, once again, Doc gets into another dispute with a man by the name of Johnny Tyler in a place called the Oriental Saloon.
You're a millionaire. Stop it.
Yeah. Now, how many Oriental saloons were in the West? Because it seems like we're coming a lot, along that in our research.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess Asian immigrants starting saloons?
Railroads were coming through at this time, and you had a high number of
Asians building
the railroad.
Yes, I will not call them.
Even though they were horribly underpaid, they did have some money to spend. So if you have the Oriental, Oriental Saloon, the Oriental this, it would draw attention from them.
Now, Johnny Tyler, who he had originally got into the fight with, was fairly aware of Doc's reputation, so he got the hell on out of there. But the saloon owner, a man named Milt Joyce, continued to argue with Doc.
Well, that was stupid.
Yeah, and of course, the argument turned violent, and Doc was pissed drunk at the time. Now, he began shooting shots, and he actually hit Joyce in the hand and hit Joyce's bartender, a man by the name of Parker, in the toe of his left foot. So this dude was just drunk, just firing everywhere. He probably couldn't even see straight.
Shot Charlie the parakeet.
Yeah. So Milt actually hit Doc in the head with a pistol. They arrested Doc that night, charged him with assault with a deadly weapon, found him guilty, and fined him $20 for assault and battery and $11.25 for the court costs. So here's a millionaire who's like, I'm out $31 for this. I mean, come on. $31.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, Big Nose Kate, she would, visit Doc, regularly. And for some reason, they just fought. They fought all the time.
That's probably why they kept a distance between each other also.
Might have been a good thing.
I mean, you fight every time. You want to see this person, but you fight every time you see them. You keep your distance.
Yeah. Now, alcohol was a big accelerant in their fights.
Oh, I'd imagine.
And eventually, Doc had enough, and he threw her out.
No.
This is where we kind of need to switch gears for just a moment and talk about an incident, okay? Now, on March 15th of 1881, 4 masked men tried to hold up a stagecoach near Contention, and in the attempt, they actually killed the stagecoach driver and another passenger. Now, the cowboy faction, wanting to place the blame on somebody, immediately started saying it was Doc.
Well, if I'm right, the actually robbing a stagecoach or killing a stagecoach operator was at the same level. It's like basically a federal level offense.
Oh, absolutely.
Now. It wasn't like just killing somebody in a saloon. I mean, it was, if you do that, they're coming after you.
Now, the local sheriff who was investigating this found Big Nose Kate, actually got her plowed with freaking alcohol, got her drunk, and got her to sign an affidavit saying that Doc was guilty and part of the stagecoach murder.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, while Kate was freaking sobering up, the Earps were running around trying to find witnesses so they could verify Doc's alibi and everything. And finally, when Kate realized what she had done, they got her to recant her statement to the sheriff that originally, took it. But Doc, he was like, "No, this is it for us." And
oh, man.
that was the end for a while for Doc and Kate.
They're fighting nonstop. She got drunk, said he did it. Boom.
Now, all throughout the summer of 1881, the Clantons continued to threaten the Earp brothers. And it's just more and more, just more they could get away with, the more crap they could talk.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, they were always referred to saying that they were going to send Wyatt to Boot Hill. Now, I'm assuming this is going to be a local cemetery, maybe calling it Boot Hill because it was not far away from a military base.
Oh, yeah, had to be.
Yeah. Now, on Tuesday, the 25th of October, Ike, of all people, spent the day getting drunk and going from one saloon to the next, making threats about the Earps and Doc Holliday to anybody who would listen to him. Yeah. Now, can you imagine this? Getting on your horse and going on a drunken bender where you literally got to just ride from dusty town to town, basically drunk and yelling to whoever will listen to you until somebody else throws you out of that saloon and you've got to go riding on to the next one.
Which I would absolutely not do considering the other people have a body count.
Yeah,
this. It's a fact. It's well known, but you're still going to talk trash.
Yeah, now that night, he made his way into the Occidental Saloon for a card game with his fellow gang member, Tom McLaury. Now, Doc, who was getting pissed about hearing of all this, went and confronted both Ike and Tom.
You've been talking smack, bro.
Yeah, he said, "I heard you're going to kill me, Ike," he said. "Get out your gun and commence." Now, Virgil, who was there at the time, and he was a deputy marshal, along with Wyatt, they basically pushed themselves into the confrontation and told them that even though Doc was their friend, he was fixing to end up in jail too if they didn't stop it right then. Now, while they were being broke up, Clanton is still talking smack, and he was promising to kill you tomorrow when the others come to town. He was waiting on his boys. Now, while being thrown out, Ike spotted Wyatt on the street, and he said, "Tell your consumptive friend," referring to Doc, "your Arizona Nightingale, he'll be a dead man tomorrow." And Wyatt replied, "Don't you tangle with Doc Holliday. He'll kill you before you begun." That's some pretty fair smack talk when these men are trying to murder each other, you know?
Oh, yeah. And the fact that they're still just going back and forth and haven't taken action.
Yeah. So Ike's last words was, "Get ready for a showdown."
Oh, man.
Wednesday, October 26th of 1881.
This is where crap hits the fan.
An overcast and windy day. Now, the Earps, who were in anticipation of trouble after all that Ike said, his boys were coming to town, y'all are dead. So they got up early, Virgil was watching from his hotel window and saw Billy Clanton ride into town with his friend Billy Claiborne. They were both gang members of the cowboy gang. Now, they met the McLaury brothers, and Ike Clanton on this place called Allen Street. Now, Ike was already looking for the holidays, but before he could find them, Virgil and Morgan confronted Ike. Now, Ike, bracing and holding a shotgun, exchanged words with the two men, but when Clanton raised his rifle, Virgil subdued him, impounding his rifle, and dragged him before the justice of the peace, who fined him $27.50 for carrying a firearm in the city.
That's right, because you had to check your guns in when you entered the town limits.
At the saloon, the stable, or the sheriff's office, you had to check your gun.
Right.
Now, Wyatt and Tom McLaury, both hearing what had happened, met at the judge's door at the same time. Like, they literally bumped into each other. Now, Wyatt tried to apologize, but McLaury insulted him, and in return, Wyatt brought his gun down on McLaury's head. So they ran in, bumped into each other. Wyatt actually tried to say, "I'm sorry," but McLaury wasn't having nothing. So Wyatt just took out his fucking pistol and bop right upside the head, knocked him out. Now, this was early in the morning, okay, guys? Now, later that morning, the Cowboys all met up at a place called Spangenberg's. It was a gunsmith shop. Now, Frank McLaury rode his horse onto the boardwalk, and he was scaring off people that were trying to walk around and just enjoy their day. Now, Wyatt ran up, grabbed the reins of the horse, leading it out into the middle of the street with McLaury on top of the horse cussing at Wyatt the whole time. Now, since the last confrontation, the Outlaws had retreated into a group back off of Allen Street. Now, with all the tension, there was bound to be a fight, you know?
Yeah.
And several members of the town citizens committee actually offered their assistance to help the Earp brothers to calm this situation. But they was just like, nah, thanks.
No, at this point, it's...
But we got this. You know, they done crossed the line. We got this.
Yeah.
Now, a man named John Behan, who was the local county sheriff, appeared, and Now, John Behan, the local sheriff, came up to Wyatt and told him that Ike Clanton and his crew that were on Fremont Street talking gun talk. I don't really know what talking gun talk is.
Do you think that means setting up like a shootout or something?
I guess that was just like
I've never heard that phrase before.
I haven't either. But evidently, Ike Clanton, the two McLaurys, Billy Clanton, and Billy Claiborne were chilling in a vacant lot planning to ambush Doc Holliday, who went by there every morning. That was part of his route.
So they wasn't as worried about Wyatt and the other guys as they were Doc.
I think they felt that Doc was the real threat. You know,
That's
the
what I'm
Wyatts
getting.
were the lawmen. They had to follow that letter of the law. Doc on
was
the
a
other
wild
hand,
card.
didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't know what he was going to do, too.
Yeah. Now, Virgil, who was the chief marshal, agreed to go down to the lot and tried to break them up, but wanted the local sheriff, Mr. Behan, to be with them. Now,
Of
that
course.
man laughed. He said, "Hell, buddy, this is your fight, not mine." But the Cowboys were actually surprised when the Earps showed up with Doc with them, you know? So
they all showed up together instead
Yeah.
of just Doc.
now here they were talking all that smack. They got their guns out, getting ready. Oh, I wish he would come. I wish the motherfucker would come over here to this side of town. So here they come, and now they're getting all quiet like, oh shit, he brought friends. Now, this is where they were, in that vacant lot was the OK Corral. Now, this is where it gets a little hazy, but there are a few things that we know for a fact. First, we need to set this up, that the three Earp brothers were all dressed head to toe in black, firm, solemn expressions on their face, you know. While Doc was dressed up, he was freaking whistling a tune, he was carrying on, have a good time, you know. So the actual gunfight took place off of Fremont Street between a place called Fly's Photo Gallery and Jersey's Livery Stable. So you had a photography hut and a horse stable, and that's where this actually
dirt.
happened.
I mean, it's literally dirt flying. Yeah. I mean, it's, the
Yeah.
old West town.
They actually cut through the actual OK Corral to get to this point where they can confront them at. Now, Virgil went to announce, you guys are under arrest. You've been disturbing the peace. Now, as a senior officer, he displayed only a non-threatening walking stick, okay? Having given his shotgun to Doc to carry. Now, the rustlers tightened up, and Morgan and Doc simultaneously got ready for what was about to go down. Now, hold on, I don't want that, was screamed by Virgil. Now, this is where the shit hits the fan. In the next 30 seconds, if that, it all went down. The shooting started when Billy Clanton and Frank McLaury cocked their pistols. Now, it's not really known who fired the first shot, but they say Doc's was the first bullet to hit home.
I can see that.
Now, they say he shot Frank McLaury in the stomach with the shotgun. And one of McLaury's own shot ended up shooting wild and through Wyatt's coattail, of all things.
Whoa.
So you've got Virgil telling everybody to hang on. You got two of the cowboys trying to raise up and cock their pistols. You got Doc, who just blew a motherfucker's belly open with a shotgun at possibly close range. And while he was flailing about, he wildly shoots Wyatt Earp's coattail.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now, Billy Clanton then fired at Virgil, but was also, his shot went wild when he was hit with some of Morgan's bird shot in the ribs. So
Bird shot.
Yeah, Doc and Morgan are freaking using stagecoach guns. They got sawed-off shotguns.
Right.
And they're letting them sing out. So while everybody else is getting their bearings and trying to hold off, you got Doc and you got Morgan who are fucking bam, bam. Yeah, Danny DeVito style. So anyway, I started blasting.
Say hello to my little friend.
Yeah. Now, badass Billy Claiborne took off running just as soon as the shots were fired and was well out of sight before the dust settled. Yeah. Now, Ike Clanton, too, Mr. Badass, he actually panicked, threw his gun down, and ran away, pleading for his life. Now, Wyatt begins to yell, "Fight or get out like Claiborne," at the rest of the cowboys who were still there. He's
giving him a chance. Get the heck out, or I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah.
You make the choice.
And he watched Ike desert his freaking brother, Billy, as he ran towards the door to hide in the photography hut.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. 1 hour photo my ass. But then Ike withdrew a hidden gun that he had, and he shot one more time towards Wyatt before he ran off. Now, that sound distracted Morgan just long enough that Tom McLaury sent a bullet into Morgan's side. He shot Morgan during the distraction. Now, Doc instantly shot Tom and hit him with both barrels. Documented. Hit him with both barrels.
That is not an easy feat either.
Yeah.
Anybody's ever shot a shotgun.
So Billy Clanton, who was wounded and dying, began firing blindly into the streets. And basically, he shot Virgil in the leg, and Wyatt shot Billy several times after that.
And the dude still, though, I mean, he was just trying his best.
He did after.
He's out dying. Finally, 7 rounds. He's done.
Yeah. Now, then everything went silent, began to calm down. People started trying to figure out what was going on. Now, they took Morgan and Virgil by wagon to their homes and sent for the doctors. Now, that small 30-second shootout left Billy Clanton, Frank McLaury, and Tom McLaury dead. Virgil Earp took a shot to the leg, and Morgan suffered a shoulder wound. So you've got 3 dead cowboys, you've got a wounded Virgil, and you've got a wounded Morgan. Now, Wyatt was standing there in shock when the local sheriff, Mr. John Beeham, actually came up to him and told him he was under arrest. Now, the Earps and Doc Holliday were actually tried for murder, but it was determined that they acted within the law.
Well, wait, the Earps and Doc came in with the sheriff, and the sheriff actually gave a shotgun to Doc, but they got tried for murder.
No, one of the marshals, Earps, gave the shotgun to Doc.
Oh, okay.
See, this is where things get a little strange,
right? Because
there was a local sheriff, but these guys were marshals. It was like local police, but we're the feds, you know? Right. So they were kind of really coming in, doing what they wanted. It was the Wild West, you know? Yeah. Take it how you want it. Fun fact, guys, we're not experts. We're not professionals. I'm not even sober, so just take what we're saying with a grain of salt. Now, where should we go from there? I think we should move on to January of 1882, where another supposed confrontation happened between Wyatt, Doc, and John Ringo. Now, many would say that John Ringo actually challenged the Earp brothers and Holiday, but it can't really be true, as that Virgil and Morgan were incapacitated from the previous shootout and weren't healed up enough to let this confrontation actually happen. So this is another one of those Hollywood hearsays that has become part of history that we're trying to dissect for you guys and pull it apart and get the truth out.
It's still crazy the dust hasn't even settled and they're already getting ready for another skirmish.
Yeah. So even though Ringo might have actually offered this challenge and we don't know, it's not like they could have accepted it. So if Ringo was challenging the Earps at this time, they were not in a position to accept the challenge. Now, it's also should be said that these cowboys like to drink, and the Earps just kind of considered it as drunk ramblings and didn't pay too much attention to it.
Well, the Earps were always kind of the ones that were a little bit more reserved than the rest of them.
Now, in March of 1882, the Cowboy Gang actually struck again while Morgan Earp was playing pool at Campbell and Hatch's Saloon. Now, a shot was fired from the dark and struck Morgan in the back. Now, Morgan's body was dressed in one of Doc Holliday's suits and shipped to Colton, California for burial. Mm-hmm. So, Doc let his buddy be buried in one of his suits.
But now it's
personal.
Yeah.
It
went from the shootout and everything else to now it's for real.
Now, only 2 days later, the Earps encountered Frank Stilwell and Ike Clanton at the Tucson Railroad Station, and Wyatt actually chased Mr. Stilwell down the track, filling him full of holes. Yeah. A coroner's jury named Wyatt and Warren Earp, Doc Holliday, and Texas Jack Vermillion, along with Sherman McMasters, as the men who had killed Stilwell and issued warrants for their arrest. Yeah, but, I mean,
dude, these guys are killing your family. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
During this, the Earps, he was out during this. This became known as the Earp Vengeance Ride, which later on in some other episodes we will definitely dive in and cover. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. It's a rabbit hole.
Don't even worry about it. We got you.
Yes, it is definitely a rabbit hole when you start reading this stuff.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Stilwell was just the first one to be crossed off the list. And the whole way through this vengeance ride, Doc was at Wyatt's side, Now, Wyatt then heard that Pete Spence was at a wood camp in the Dragoons. And on March 21st of 1882, he quickly headed out, went to look for Pete Spencer, but actually found a gang member by the name of Florentino Cruz. Now, the frightened Cruz named all the men who were involved in Morgan's death.
He snitched.
Even on himself. He snitched everywhere.
Did he get stitches?
Well, they don't really stitch up dead men,
Oh, that happened to him.
Yeah. They filled Cruz full of bullets.
Oh, man. Dude, come on. He gave up his buddies, and you're still going to shoot him.
He had to,
Yep, had to go.
He had to go. That's all. Now, the Earp posse rode out once again, and on March 24th of 1882, not long after that, they found Curly Bill Brocious and 8 of his men near a place called Iron Springs. Another gunfight broke out.
9 people.
Yeah. And 6 of them at this time?
Yeah.
4 other people, Doc and Wyatt, against 9 folks or so. Now, a gunfight happened where they killed Curly Bill, and a man named Johnny Barnes received a wound that was fatal. He didn't die right away, but he did die. So they got 2 more right then. Now, in just over a year, the Earp posse, along with Doc, eliminated Old Man Clanton, Billy Clanton, Frank McLaury, Tom McLaury, Frank Stilwell, Indian Charlie, Dixie Gray, Florentino Cruz, Johnny Barnes, Jim Crane, Harry Head, Bill Leonard, Joe Hill, Luther King, Charlie Snow, Billy Lang, Zwing Hutt, Billy Grounds, and Hank Swilling.
Oh my gosh.
A man named Pete Spence turned himself in out of fear.
I would too.
I didn't make up any of those names, you guys. Those are at all. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Like 20 people, dude. Like I can't count that well.
Bro.
There's a lot, but almost 20 people.
Oh my god. And this isn't counting the ones before either. The body count.
Yeah, that's not counting Curly Bill.
Yeah.
It is.
That's a mess. That's a lot of people.
They wiped out that gang so bad. Like this
gosh.
Pete Spence, he turned himself in so he could actually hide in the penitentiary.
I would.
Like that's when you know you're scared. You know.
Oh man.
So
well, you can't run. I
Nah.
mean, these guys chase you everywhere.
On horseback. You know.
Oh, that's insane.
For hundreds and hundreds of miles. Just
ear to the ground.
yeah. Now in May of 1882. Wyatt and Doc left Tombstone, swearing they would never return. They rode their horses into Silver City, New Mexico, sold them, hopped on a stage to a place called Deming, and boarded a train for Colorado. Now, shortly after they arrived in Colorado, Doc was arrested by a man named Perry Milan. So after all this, then he finally gets arrested. Now, some people thought that Perry Milan was actually a brother to Johnny Tyler, who was an enemy of Holliday's.
Oh.
And was supposedly one of the gunmen that ran out of Tombstone, that Doc and them ran off.
Right.
Now, on May 22nd of 1882, while Doc was in jail, the newspaper called the Denver Republican printed the following, and I quote, "Holliday has a big reputation as a fighter and has probably put more rustlers and cowboys under the sod than any other one man in the West. He had been the terror of the lawless element in Arizona, and with the Earps was the only man brave enough to face the bloodthirsty crowd, which has made the name of Arizona a stench in the nostrils of decent men." Now, Milan told the paper that he was standing alongside when Curly Bill Brocious was killed. Now, Doc related his thoughts on that whole situation. Said 8 rustlers rose up from behind the bank and poured from 35 to 40 shots at us. Our escape was miraculous. The shot cut our clothes and saddles and killed one horse, but did not hit us. I think we would have been killed if God Almighty wasn't on our side. Wyatt Earp turned loose with a shotgun and killed Curly Bill. The 8 men in the gang which attacked us were all outlaws, for each of whom had a big reward has been offered. Now, if Milan was alongside Curly Bill when he was killed, he was with one of the worst gangs and murderers and robbers in the country.
Said the guy that killed how many people?
Yeah, just got done knocking off 24 folks.
Yeah.
Now, finally, Doc's troubles concerning extradition to Arizona actually ended. On May 30th of 1882, Doc Holliday actually got a pardon by the governor. It was the Governor Pitkin. Now, the district attorney's office was represented by the Honorable L.E. Barnum. Can you be honorable and your name Barnum?
I was fixing to go there.
You got a cousin named Bailey? Now, assistant district attorney, who was also accompanied on his visit by the governor by Deputy Sheriff Linton and Sheriff Paul of Arizona, among others who were present when Deputy Sheriff Masterson of Trinidad and several friends of Holliday. Now, Doc left Denver traveling to Pueblo, Colorado. Now, however, on July 14th of 1882, it was alleged that while he was still in Colorado, a man named John Yost, a teamster in Arizona, who had his body discovered intertwined among the branches of an oak tree east of the Dragoon Mountains.
So, like, literally, like, in the tree.
Yeah, they hung him up in the trees. A bullet had entered this man's head in the right temple and exited through the top of his head.
Ugh.
The body actually turned out to be that of John Ringo, sworn enemy of Doc Holliday.
Oh.
Now, although Bat Masterson, Warren Earp, and some other newspaper friends that were attempting to create an alibi claimed that Doc had never left Colorado, the truth of the matter was that Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday had returned to Arizona.
They
Yeah.
snuck in.
While there, they met up with some of their old friends.
Oh, yeah.
Fred Dodge, Oregon Smith, Johnny Meager, and Johnny Green, and also probably a man named Lou Cooley. Not sure why probably, but he might have been there, he might not have been. But he was spotted by the group, and the next day he was found dead.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. So Doc once again got to get out of town, just quietly this time.
This dude can't stop.
No, he just can't stop. So he headed to a place called Leadville, Colorado, where he tried to lead another quiet life until the afternoon of August 19th, 1884.
Of course.
About 5 p.m., Doc was in a place called the Hyman Saloon. And as a man named Billy Adder, he was in the Hyman.
The Hyman.
Yeah. All up in the Hyman.
The Hyman.
So, once again, he was in Leadville. A man named Billy Allen walked into Hyman Saloon. And Doc knew Allen was looking for trouble, so he just freaking shot at him. Yeah, there's no other information then. Allen walked in, and he shot at him, purposely right over his head. Now, Allen turned and intended to run away, but actually tripped and landed on his hands and knees. Now, Doc reached over the counter, fired again, then he struck Allen in the right arm. Now, Holliday would have shot him again, but the bartender rushed up from behind and reached down and clamped down on his gun hand. Now, in the news article for the following report, the Leadville Daily Democrat stated in part that the public sentiment, which has nothing to do with the law, is largely in favor of Holliday. The manlier class of the community not only appreciates this, but have little criticism to make of his actions and connections with his trouble with Allen. So, public consensus was by this time he was a very liked and sort of famous man,
Yeah.
Now, facing a long legal process and his popularity notwithstanding, he was actually found not guilty of the shooting. Now, the courthouse in Leadville today still shows the arrest of the infamous gunfighter and gambler and has Doc Holliday listed in their jail records. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like, so for the town, it's literally their one moment in time.
Maybe so. I've never heard of Leadville.
Yeah.
If anyone at home has heard of Leadville, please let me know. Now, the Leadville police, they kept a strict watch out for concealed weapons and wanted to make sure there was going to be no more violence, okay? So by the winter of 1885, Holliday, who was actually suffering from a bout of pneumonia, needed to leave and headed back out to Denver. So this is a point in time where his health is actually starting to come to the forefront.
Yeah, it's detrimental at this point. I mean, you have pneumonia on top of tuberculosis. I mean, your lungs are just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of get a little sad now. Now, while he was in Denver, he got to see his old friend Wyatt one more time. Now, in the winter of late 1886, they met in the lobby of the Windsor Hotel. Sadie Marcus described the skeletal Holliday as having a continuous cough and standing on unsteady legs.
Oh, man.
So he was pretty much...
pale-skinned, sweat pouring off of him.
Now, Holliday's health continued to deteriorate, and he was a realist, and he was not one to believe in miraculous recoveries and fairy tales, and, he didn't think things were looking good for him. But he was hoping that the Yampa hot springs and sulfur vapors might improve his health. So he headed for Glenwood Springs, Colorado in May of 1887. Now, we just mentioned how sick he was, how bad coughing, he could hardly stand. So he had to actually travel, in that state to make it, you know.
Well, at the time, the hot springs and everything else, it was basically their snake oil. These places would advertise that it would cure cancer, it would cure tuberculosis, it would cure, and Doc, like it said, he was a realist, but he's like, maybe it'll help me some. Like, it's not going to cure me, but maybe I can, to help me out just for this end.
Yeah.
To ride this out.
So he registered at the Hotel Glenwood, which at the time was a very prominent and fashionable hotel. Now, his health began to become worse and worse over the days. and he spent his last 57 days in bed at the hotel, and they said was delirious for roughly 2 weeks of that.
Oh, man.
No medical care, just in his hotel room. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he's got to pay people to send stuff.
Big Nose Kate's out of the picture. They're done. Wyatt, they seen each other before this, but Wyatt's not there. The guy was pretty much alone.
Yeah. Now, on November 8th of 1887, almost at like an anniversary, kind of passed it up. But on November 8th of 1887, he awoke clear-eyed and asked for a glass of whiskey. It was given to him, and he drank it with a smile on his face. And he looked down at his bare feet exposed from the sheets and said, "This is funny," and died.
What a guy.
He always figured he would be killed with his boots on.
Oh, wow.
Now, Doc Holliday had come out west years before, knowing his days were numbered. He never believed that he would die in bed. And I think throughout his actions of this story, you can tell that was his intentions, And
he tried his best to die
yeah,
by a gun.
He often
Or die with his boots on.
He was often quoted as saying that his end would come from lead poisoning, at the end of a rope, a knife in his ribs, or that he might drink himself to death.
But tuberculosis.
In bed with cold feet. Now, his obituary, appearing in the Leadville Carbonate Chronicle on November 14th of 1887, stated the following. There is scarcely one in the country who had acquired a greater notoriety than Doc Holliday, who enjoyed the reputation of being one of the most fearless men on the frontier, and whose devotion to his friends and the climax of the fiercest ordeal was inextinguishable. It was this, more than any other faculty, that secured for him the reverence of a large circle who were prepared on the shortest notice to rally to his relief. Now, the Glenwood Springs Cemetery sits high upon a steep hill, overlooking a valley below. But at the time of his death, the steep road was too icy, so they buried him at the bottom of the hill with the intention of moving his body up when the ice thawed, but they never did. Now, many years later, a housing development was built at the base of the hill, and though a marker sits in the cemetery, his actual remains are probably buried in someone's backyard. But it is to be said that his father actually came and had his son interred and brought back to, I believe, Georgia, and he was buried somewhere else. Now, Doc Holliday claimed he almost lost his life a total of 9 times. 4 attempts were made to hang him, and he was shot at 5 times. Through all this documentation, nobody knows actually how many men Doc Holliday killed.
I lost count.
Yeah. I'm going to end it here with a quote by Wyatt Earp. I found him a loyal friend and good company. He was a dentist whom necessity had made a gambler, a gentleman whom disease had made a vagabond, a philosopher whom life had made a caustic wit, a long, lean, blond fellow nearly dead with consumption, and at the same time the most skillful gambler and nerviest, speediest, deadliest man with a 6-gun I ever knew. That was Doc Holliday. That was Wyatt Earp speaking of Doc Holliday.
I swear if I die, I expect something just as glorious as that is.
Ah, yeah. So there you have it, folks. Episode number 1 in the books, Doc Holliday. Tolkien once wrote, "Not all who wander are lost." For Lost in Thought, I'm Josh.
I'm Daniel.
Guys, till next time, stay lit.